So we've done a few videos over the course of the last few days or so talking about Tessa Blanchard, because Tessa Blanchard, there's been a lot talking about her future. Where is she going to go next? Is she going to go to AEW? Is she going to go to WWE? There were reports that came out a few days ago saying that Tessa Blanchard and her husband Daga were set to sign with AEW. They'd been in negotiations for a while, and that it was pretty much a formality at this point that Tessa Blanchard and her husband Daga would sign with AEW. Then what happened? Well, another report came out and said, nope, that's not the case. It was actually Dave Meltzer that said this report, saying, no, AEW, they're not interested. I've spoken to someone in AEW. It's not happening. And we covered that yesterday, and my feeling was at the time, and I'll just briefly go over it again, but my feeling was at the time when the Dave Meltzer report came out, that was pretty much the line from AEW. If Dave Meltzer is saying that, whenever Dave Meltzer reports on an AEW story, it's pretty much because he's spoken to Tony Khan. He has a very close relationship with Tony Khan. He's spoken about that Tony Khan grew up, or at least came up through the wrestling ranks reading the Wrestling Observer newsletter. They've got connections there. If Dave Meltzer is saying that Tessa Blanchard isn't going to sign with AEW, chances are she's not going to sign with AEW. Well, these reports have pretty much been backed up and confirmed by other outlets now, and there's also a bit of update when it comes to Tessa Blanchard and possibly her future with WWE and NXT as well. So the rumours of Tessa Blanchard's upcoming debut for either WWE or AEW seemingly have been greatly exaggerated if recent reports are to be believed. Now, as I mentioned, in recent weeks, Tessa Blanchard had become more active on social media. With that in mind, there have been some rumours that she is heading back to wrestling in the very near future. Now, some said, it was actually a report by SE Scoops, they were the first to report this, that Blanchard and her husband Daga were in deep negotiations to join AEW, whereas others said that she would be part of the Diamond Mine faction that have been teased on WWE NXT over the course of the last few weeks. Well, firstly, let's go to AEW, and I'll touch on NXT in the second half of the video. But as I mentioned, Dave Meltzer said, nope, it's not happening. There have been numerous other outlets when it comes to Tessa Blanchard and AEW. They have since confirmed this. So for AEW, Mike Johnson of PW Insider has shot down the rumors of Tessa Blanchard heading to AEW. According to AEW sources, not only is Tessa Blanchard not scheduled to debut, but she hasn't even had any discussions about joining the promotion, nor have there been any contracts offered to her. Now, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, which of course is Fightful's Patreon service, be sure to check that out and subscribe. They do a lot of good information and stories there. They are backing up PW Insider's reports. Sean Ross Sapp said he's been told the idea of bringing Blanchard into AEW is currently, quote, a firm no. So Tessa Blanchard isn't heading to AEW. Now, that's not surprising. That's really not surprising. As I've mentioned before, the surprising element of this whole Tessa Blanchard AEW story was the fact that it was even brought up in the first place, because AEW, they've been very consistent when it comes to Tessa Blanchard, and this was my criticism at the time when this story first came out, that Tessa Blanchard and Daga are set to sign with AEW. I was really surprised by this because, well, so many reasons. And obviously we can talk about the Tessa Blanchard, the bad PR, the negative connotations of signing her, the allegations in the past of bullying, using racist language, racist behavior, being difficult to work with, behavioral problems, all that kind of stuff. That to me goes against, well, it goes against what AEW have spoken openly about in the past. They have, when it comes to people like Hulk Hogan, and I know the situation is slightly different. Hogan has been recorded on tape using racist language. Tessa Blanchard hasn't, but certainly there have been stories, allegations, and first-hand accounts by numerous other sources that she didn't say and do these things. They've said in the past to Hulk Hogan, they being Tony Khan, pronouns, they've said that, look, you're not welcome at an AEW show. You're banned, your wife is banned, your family is banned. We don't tolerate that kind of language. We certainly don't tolerate your crappy apology that you did backstage in WWE. We haven't forgiven and we haven't forgot. You're not allowed. We don't tolerate that kind of stuff in the company. And I found the reports of Tessa Blanchard heading to AEW very confusing, because they had that stance on it in the past, that it feels like a bit of a double standard, doesn't it? It would have felt like a massive double standard of, wait a minute, you're saying that you wouldn't have Hulk Hogan in because of the language and the behavior he's done in the past. There isn't a massive amount of difference between what's alleged that Tessa Blanchard has said and done in the past between her and Hulk Hogan. So why would you ban Hulk Hogan and yet you would sign Tessa Blanchard? You would pay her money and reportedly do a redemption storyline and all that kind of stuff. That just didn't jive with me, and I really didn't think that was accurate. I found that very, very odd, very odd. And on top of that, as I've mentioned, Tessa Blanchard has now been out of the pro wrestling spotlight, if you will, for about a year. She was released from her contract in Impact Wrestling around this time last year. It was just before Slammiversary. It was around June, July. And of course, she was going to leave anyway. Her contract was expiring. She didn't renegotiate. She was in Mexico because of the pandemic. There were issues traveling. She was the Impact World Champion at the time. Impact wanted her to come in and drop the title at Slammiversary, or at the very least work a few Impact TV tapings, drop the title there. She didn't want to do it. There were reports of her being difficult, not wanting to film vignettes, not wanting to travel, all that kind of stuff. Impact Wrestling and then threw their hands up in the air and said, you know what, it's not worth it. We'll vacate the title. We've persisted with you. We gave you the World Championship despite the negative PR that was going on at the time. It's not worth it anymore. Your contract's expiring anyway. We'll cut it off here. It's done. It's done. And obviously then the reports and the rumours started to come out. Where is Tessa Blanchard going? Is she going to go to WWE? Is she going to go to AEW? And very quickly, AEW reached out to various journalists, and again, people that would know in the pro wrestling community in terms of journalists, whether it's Dave Meltzer, whether it's Brian Alvarez, whoever, the ones that definitely do have the close connections to AEW, they reached out to them and said, look, we're not interested. We're not interested because of these past allegations. Yes, her father, Tully Blanchard, is on television. He is part of the AEW roster. He's an on-screen character, but he doesn't have a position of authority in AEW. The fact he's with the company doesn't affect any kind of status of Tessa Blanchard coming in, and we're not interested. We're not interested in bringing her in because of these allegations, because of people I've worked with her in the past that are currently on the roster. They're not fans of her. It's not worth upsetting the apple cart, if you will. We're not interested. So I found the supposed U-turn by AEW very, very surprising. So now that the reports are coming out, and we're talking not just Dave Meltzer or Brian Alvarez, we're talking Sean Ross Sapp, we're talking Mike Johnson, the PW Insider, we're talking the big hitters here. If they're all saying the same thing, if they're all singing off the same hymn sheet that Tessa Blanchard isn't going to AEW, I think it's very, very likely Tessa Blanchard isn't going to AEW, and that certainly sounds like that AEW have briefed all of these journalists and say, no, get it out there. We don't want to come out ourselves and officially say, we're not going to sign Tessa Blanchard. We're just telling all of the journalists, look, pour water on this. It's not happening. And to be honest, again, considering their stance in the past when it comes to this kind of behavior, when it comes to their stance in the past about signing Tessa Blanchard anyway, I don't find that surprising in the slightest. So that's certainly interesting. But I did say I was going to touch on Tessa Blanchard and her status with NXT. Background change, it's like magic, because this was the one that I thought, I always felt Tessa Blanchard, she wasn't going to go to AEW because of the reasons we discussed, but I did think heading to WWE was a real possibility, and there have been reports when it comes to WWE's interest in Tessa Blanchard for the past 12 months. There have been numerous people, I think Alex McCarthy and I think some other people did reports that WWE were interested in Blanchard. They knew the talent there. Obviously, Tessa Blanchard had been involved in the NXT system before. She was let go, reportedly because of behavioral issues. If you talk to her, it just wasn't a good fit, all that kind of stuff. I don't know who to believe in that one. Probably the issues when it comes to behavior, because it's a bit like the Ivelisse situation, isn't it? That it's kind of the same story that keeps coming up there. Nevertheless, I felt that WWE would be most likely destination for her because they don't care about the negative PR that comes with signing Tessa Blanchard. They've got Hulk Hogan in the Hall of Fame. They brought him back to the company after he was on tape saying these racist terms and using this racist language. On top of that, not only did they bring him back to the company, they inducted him into the Hall of Fame for the second time this year. They had him host WrestleMania where he got booed out of the stadium in pretty much his hometown. They don't care about negative PR. I can go on and on. The Velveteen Dream is still training at the Performance Center, even though all of those allegations against him. They don't care about negative PR. So because of that, I thought, you know what? It feels likely here, doesn't it? It feels very likely that despite the negative PR that will inevitably come wherever she signs, even if she went back to Impact, there would still be the negative PR. I felt that WWE, they won't care. They'll sign her. Wow. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case because WWE sources told Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful that while Tessa Blanchard has used the diamond imagery in the past, again, which is why a lot of people thought she's probably going to be part of the Diamond Mines faction, considering that on her gear and all that kind of stuff, She's used that diamond imagery before. Despite using that diamond imagery in the past, WWE sources did tell Sean Ross Sapp that she isn't linked to the upcoming NXT faction, the Diamond Mine. Now, whatever the Diamond Mine is currently being held close to the vest within WWE. The only thing known for sure is that Blanchard isn't involved. Now, rumours are certain to persist throughout the year regarding Tessa Blanchard's status. However, at this time, it would appear that she's not heading to AEW or WWE anytime soon. So that is interesting. Now, when it comes to the WWE side of things and the NXT side of things, don't get me wrong, Sean Ross Sapp is very, very good, and he really does have a certain checklist, if you will, of when he puts out these stories. He doesn't get it from one source and say, yeah, I'm going to put it out. They double check, they triple check, and I would lean to believe that he is accurate here. I just don't know when it comes to WWE sources if I truly, truly believe that Tessa Blanchard isn't involved in that. Don't get me wrong. There are so many sources in WWE. It's outrageous. They've got more leaks than the Titanic. They really do. They struggle to get, their match results not spoiled and all that kind of stuff. Well, last year when they were taping from the Performance Center, even though there was no crowd in attendance, people knew the results straight away on social media because they have that many leaks inside the company. It really was that bad. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Sean Ross Sapp is inaccurate here. I just think that WWE sometimes can be slightly sophisticated in terms of how they release information to certain journalists, or how they try and get information out there to confuse people or try and send people in the wrong direction. Rightfully so, people looked at that Diamond Mine imagery, they looked at Tessa Blanchard, and they said, well, put two and two together, you would think Tessa Blanchard's a free agent. She's used the diamond imagery in the past. It's the Diamond Mine. She's most likely to head to WWE anyway. It makes sense that would be Tessa Blanchard. Now, we could be looking at a scenario, I think, and this is just speculation on my part, but we could be looking at a situation where maybe, just maybe, WWE or NXT, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, those lot have gone, you know what? It seems very obvious that it's going to be Tessa Blanchard, and it is Tessa Blanchard, but it feels very obvious that it will be her. Can we not put something out to the sheets? Can we not put something out to the websites and put things out to journalists saying, no, it's not going to be Tessa Blanchard, don't, and try and misdirect them and throw them in a different direction? Possibly. I think that's possibly. So just because the reporters come out saying, no, she's not going to go to WWE, she's not going to go to NXT, for me, it doesn't rule it out. I struggle to believe, again, that WWE wouldn't look at Tessa Blanchard and wouldn't be interested. And I know people will say, what about the PR and all that kind of stuff? Like I said before, WWE doesn't care. They don't care when it comes to the PR situation for Tessa Blanchard. When they weigh up good PR and negative PR versus money, and that's all WWE has ever cared about. They don't care about image unless it's really mainstream stuff. When it comes to the image in terms of the pro wrestling world and pro wrestling hardcore fans, they don't care. If they think Tessa Blanchard can make them money, if they think they can rehab Tessa Blanchard, if you will, and rehab her image and, I don't know, put her in a light where people forget about the things that she's alleged to have said and done in the past, they will do it. They will do it because if there's money to be made, WWE will try their best to very much make it. So I still do think if she heads anywhere, it'll be to WWE out of those major companies. But look, you do have to look at now the possible scenario that AEW isn't interested and WWE isn't interested, which then leads you to say, well, then your options do start to sort of shrink a little bit. Now, obviously, there still are options. She could go back to Impact Wrestling. I don't know if necessarily that's completely off the table. I don't. I know things didn't end great there. And I think that's important to stress. Things didn't end great there. She was the world champion and she refused to drop the title, essentially, and she didn't want to travel. And I think people like your Don Callis's, like your Scott D'Amores, would look at that and say, why would we want to go back to that? The thing is, Impact Wrestling are very much a business is business. And again, if they think that there's money to be made or they can do something that's good television or can get people talking, they're a small company and they're more than happy to get people talking. I think their relationship with AEW might change things when it comes to that, and maybe they don't want to. AEW might not want to be seen to be working with a company that is hiring someone like Tessa Blanchard. Again, it's a very complex situation. So if it's not going to be Impact Wrestling, well, where would it be? Now, Ring of Honor, of course, they're recently re-establishing their own women's division. I don't know if I necessarily see Ring of Honor, because obviously they had their own sort of drama when it comes to Marty Scurll last year. And I don't know if Ring of Honor would really want to be jumping back into that. On the flip side of things, they're looking for that big centerpiece signing for their women's division, and maybe somewhere like ROH is the best place for her right now. It's a little bit more under the radar. She can do her work there. She can reestablish her name. She can build up a good reputation once again, all that kind of stuff. That's a possibility, I guess. Again, I just don't know, considering, again, the issues they had last year with Marty Scurll, and we are talking different situations, different allegations there, but it's still the point of it was negative PR. Does Ring of Honor want to jump right back into that, if you will? I don't know. So it's a really complex situation right now. But what we are being told at this point is that Tessa Blanchard to AEW certainly isn't happening, and numerous outlets are saying that, which to me says that AEW themselves are coming out and saying, no, not interested. Tessa Blanchard ain't happening. WWE saying to Sean Ross Sapp, no, it's not got anything to do with Tessa Blanchard. Well, again, that means the faction doesn't have anything to do with Tessa Blanchard. That doesn't mean WWE isn't interested. And it doesn't mean that WWE isn't looking at her. So just because the faction doesn't have anything to do with Tessa Blanchard doesn't necessarily mean they're not interested. I think that's worth considering as well. So this whole Tessa Blanchard situation is very complex, and I don't think it's going to go away. I think Tessa Blanchard stepping back out into the social media world and reestablishing her presence on social media is because she wants to get back into pro wrestling. She wants to establish herself, get herself a deal, get herself with another promotion. She's been out of the spotlight for about a year. She feels obviously that it's time to come back. Whether or not any company takes her, we'll have to wait and see. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on AEW and WWE reportedly not being interested in Tessa Blanchard? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.